Yikes. Magic. Fantastic. God, I'm hilarious. Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of Bodice Rippers. I'm your host, the charming Coquette. So, we have substandard lighting. And yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. Let us check what is in my cup today, so we find out what kind of story we've got. The fuck is that? What am I drinking? Unicorn Kisses. Because today's book is called Lord of Legends by Susan Krinard. He is Aryan, king of the unicorns, powerful, seductive. He could possess any female he desired. Until now. He is condemned to live as a man, and it is only the enchanting Lady Maria Donnington's innocence that can release him from his curse. Abandoned on her wedding night, frightened of her hidden, otherworldly heritage, Maria is instinctively drawn to the mysterious stranger she discovers imprisoned on her husband's estate. But as the secret of Arian's magical identity unfolds, their friendship burns into a passion that must not be consummated, for to do so would destroy them both. This is terrible. I should be drinking what a unicorn would drink. I don't know what that is. I found this, so I figured I'll just have this because it looks pretty magic. Oh, that is delightful. Oh, that is that. We start with a prologue set in New York City, 1883. We get introduced to our main character, Maria, as a child at the deathbed of her mother, Portia. Shakespeare naming conventions will be common. Maria and her family are new money. Her mother seems to have been going insane for most of Maria's life, and now she spent most of Maria's life in and out of asylums, and now she's dying, and she seems to keep saying that there's things waiting for her on the other side, and she sees fairies, and it's very, very sad, until she says to Maria, "They will be coming for you too," which brings it from sad to creepy real fast. So our story really starts with Maria gets married to the Earl of Donnington, and she is moved to England. But then, on their wedding night, the Earl abandons her out of nowhere, and she has no clue what's going on. Was it me? Did he sense something wrong? Oh, baby, no. Maria is most afraid of is that the insanity that seemed to grip her mother is hereditary. So she's terrified of going insane as well, or being perceived to have any kind of mental imbalance. So she's afraid that the Earl of Donnington sensed that there was something wrong in her. Maria takes to roaming the grounds, feeling sorry for herself, when she sees a strange, shadowy figure creeping about the grounds. And then when he sees her, he went loping off like a three-legged dog, which is a very interesting image. So she gets curious about where she saw him, near this folly. And when she enters the folly, she finds a man. Not just any man. A man who looks exactly like her husband, except for having white hair and black eyes. And he's imprisoned. He wore only a scrap of cloth around his hips, barely covering a part of him that must have been quite impressively large. Oh my god. Like, get your priorities straight. She starts trying to talk to this guy, and he's just, like, not understanding. He looks very mistrustful, and when he tries to speak, only, like, guttural sounds are coming out. And so she's wondering who could this mysterious guy be that's being imprisoned on her husband's property. She says, "There's too many similarities. He and Giles must be related. A lost brother, a cousin, a relative not once mentioned by anyone in the household." Awful and scandalous. She had an even clearer glimpse of his fine, lithe body. His graceful stride, the ripple of muscle in his thighs and shoulders, the breadth of his chest, the narrow lines of his hip and waist. Girl, please. Chill. I mean, poor girl did get left on her wedding night, though, so... She starts asking him if he minds if she brings him stuff like food, comb, shaving gear, clothing. Had he been so long without such simple comforts? Yet his face lacked even the shadow of a beard. His hair was not unclean, and his body, though not precisely fragrant, was not as dirty as one might expect. He starts to sense that he can trust her, and he reaches out the bars to her, and she clasps his hand to let him know that she's making this promise, and, that she means it. But now he was astonishingly gentle, running his thumb in a feather-light caress over her wrist. It was her turn to shiver, though she fought the overwhelming sensation that coursed through her body and pooled between her legs. Indeed! So now we switch to this mysterious man's point of view. Having a hard time, he can't remember where he is exactly or what happened completely when he thinks about Mariah. She had been present on that day of pain and turmoil, when he had tried to escape his captors. The plot thickens. He had wanted her to open the cage door, but not merely to release him. He had wanted her to come inside, remove the heavy weight of fabric that bound her, open her arms to him and kneel beside him. He would place his head in her lap and no one then. She had seen only a man in him, not what he had been. He had been mighty once. No one had dared. Who am I? Mariah returns to the estate and we meet her charming mother-in-law, Vivian, who completely blames her for Donington being MIA and not even writing to tell anyone where he is or what he's doing. So Mariah feels very alone, but she meets a lovely servant girl named Nola, who she decides to take as her lady's maid. Nola will be important later. Also, we are introduced to Mariah's brother-in-law, St. John. St. John Ware rose to his feet as soon as he entered. He smiled at her. That sly, enigmatic smile that suggested he and she shared a secret no one else would ever know. I like him. That's a trend with me. I really like male characters that are kind of mischievous and rakish. I get so bored by these overwrought, poetic male leads. They're so boring. So Mariah's greeting him, and St. John notes that the dowager was kind enough to let me in despite the early hour. Vivian looked askance at him. And why should I not welcome my own son at any hour? She asked crisply. Your scapegrace son, he said. Or ought that title now go to Donington? Which, oh my god, someone spends some time and raised by Narcissus and is taking no shit. Also interesting to note, Mariah catches a glimpse of the Doningtons' coat of arms, and their motto is Cave cornum meum, beware my horn, or however you pronounce that. The motto of the Earls of Donington was a silver unicorn rearing atop a blood-red field, ready to charge at any potential enemy. They're tricky. So Mariah returns to the prison with some food. She starts cutting up some peaches for the mysterious man in the cell, and she accidentally cuts herself. Ash reached through the bars and grabbed her hand, pulling gently until her own fingers were inside the cell and drew them into his mouth. She closed her eyes, incapable of moving as he licked between her fingers and laved her thumb, almost tenderly. But the cut is gone. Surely nothing otherworldly is going on. And now she starts reading fairy tales and old mythology to him, especially the story of Eros and Psyche, which is one of my favorite myths. She brings him some things to wash with, and they have a lot of back and forth where, like, he doesn't know who she is or who he is, and she's like, I'm gonna start calling you Ash because that's what I'm gonna call you, and you don't seem to know your name. He starts washing in front of her. She swallowed. His member was very much in evidence beneath his loincloth. He was quite prominent, and she was very, very hot. I guess he's hung like a horse. Oh god. She brings him some clothes and he's dressing. She counted to herself, waiting for him to gather up the garment, put it on, fasten the buttons over his burgeoning masculinity, if the buttons would close it all. How big is he? Jesus! He's dressed and he turns around. He was still quite noticeable. Control yourself, woman! So Ash is starting to notice the intricacies of the outfit she's wearing, and he notices her bustle and he asks, "Is that where you keep your tail?" Certainly there's not something weird about this guy. That desperation, combined with arrogance and subtle mockery, that mysterious pass, that handsome face, that magnificent body. And now Ash starts to remember who and what he is. He touched his own forehead, naked and smooth, but the appendage was not entirely gone. It was only hidden, like the gleaming white hide and pearlescent hooves and the speed to outrun either human or fae. I am not human. He remembers! Yay! So yeah, he's a unicorn. Mariah's supposed to be trying to make friends kind of with the other ladies, and she's at tea at one of the houses of another noble lady with Lady Westlake and Mrs. Brandywine. And because they're, old money, they're English, they're basically snipping at her for being American, snipping at her for being nouveau riche, and that her father has an actual job. Mrs. Brandywine says, "How industrious you Americans are." Mariah responds, "Indeed. Hard work agrees with us. Men like my father prefer to earn their own way to prosperity." So I rather like Mariah for that, because she is pretty, sassy. Lady Westlake, who I mentioned briefly, is gonna show up again, because she is in love with Lord Donington and has had, an affair with him in the past, even though she's married already. And she wants to do everything in her power to get rid of Mariah, because she intends, after the death of her husband, to be the next Lady Donington. Mariah tells St. John about the prisoner and the folly. He doesn't really believe her at first, because, that would be weird. She brings St. John, he sees the prisoner for himself. They start trying to piece together that maybe he must be some kind of gentleman, and they decide to come up with a story that Ash is some distant cousin, that's the son of Vivian's long-lost sister who went away to America to get married and got married and was never heard from again. Ash comes from Tir na nog, obviously. He comes from the fairy realm. What happened was Donington wants to hunt a unicorn. He made a bargain with a fae lord named Caber that he would bring him a unicorn if Donington would provide a woman who is half fae and a virgin, which Mariah is. That's why Mariah's mother was seen as insane. She could actually see fairies, it's just that they have fae blood in their lineage, which makes them appear a little bit crazy because they can cross over to the other side. But Mariah somehow, even though she's knocked out, resists Caber and can't be brought through. And when Ash is brought through, he's turned human. So Caber's okay, well, we're gonna use the unicorn to draw her back through the gate, because she needs to come willingly through the gate. And you can't touch her, you can't, she has to be completely pure. So that Caber wants to make sure that any children that she might bear are his, because he wants her to be his wife, because, he's awful. Oh, and yes, the Fairy King is Oberon. Vivian is trying to get Nola, Mariah's lady's maid, to spy on her. Mariah waxes poetic some more on Arian's beauty. His shoulders were so much broader than she had realized, his pectorals and ridged abdominals as finely developed as the most perfect Greek statue. But his face is beautiful, not in the way a woman is beautiful, for there was nothing delicate about it. So Mariah goes to visit Ash at the cottage, only to find out that he stripped off all his clothes and ran through the back door, so she goes to find him. He paused only a few feet away, unclothed and very, very male. She seriously can't stop thinking about his dick. Her senses sprang to life as Ash gathered her close. The shadow of unacknowledged desire that she had fought from their first meeting became a solid thing that cried out for acknowledgement and sang of frustrated hopes. Good God. So, Ash randomly meets the prince. The prince takes a shine to him, invites them to this summer retreat he has that basically all the nobility goes to and swings, to say the least. Mariah closed her eyes and swayed as he took one of her fingers into his mouth. He licked and suckled on it, then moved to the next, teasing the tip with his tongue. Mariah comes to the prince's retreat with Ash and Sinjin, but at first she doesn't realize what goes on between the lords and ladies. If she could be near Ash and not give in to her baser natures, why should others not exhibit the same control? Relieved that she'd found at least one person who shared her distaste for the immoral activities that went on at Marlborough House. Honestly, I think I would hate Mariah in real life, because she's constantly thinking about sex, and not with her husband. She felt the atmosphere that suffused Marlborough House every night in the bedroom corridors and imagined herself as one of the conspirators, creeping to her lover's room. She tossed and turned as if in a fever, despising herself as much as she did any of the others. Lust is not shameful, Mariah. It was only their second kiss. And yet their lips fit together so perfectly that they might have done it 1,000 times. He was gentle at first, exploring her mouth with his tongue probing tenderly at the hollows and dips. She imagined then that this was what it would feel like to have Ash inside her. This thrusting and teasing, these soft moans and cries emerging from her throat. And imagination was all she'd had until now. The imagination that had made it so difficult for her to bear the thought of what other lovers did in the privacy of their chambers. They would lie together just so. They would kiss just so. They would... Mariah's real issue isn't so much the immoral behavior or the fact that no one's being faithful. It's that she wants to be doing what they're doing, but she can't. Knowing there was still something missing, knowing that what she wanted was not his tongue, but the ultimate manifestation of his masculinity. Yeah, I'm feeling it. So some shit goes down at Marlborough House. Mariah leaves and then decides that she should be coming back, but Ash comes to see her before she can come back because he's trying to show her what he is. And he realizes he's kind of crossed a path that he can't go back from, that even though they didn't consummate, he still changed her. Whatever. So Ash decides to kind of try to show her where he came from. And so she's seeing Tirnanog, and she's seeing all the beauty and the fairies everywhere and the unicorns. A magnificent beast stood in the meadow of delicate fronds, a beast as much like a horse as a lion is like a kitten. Its glossy coat bore no resemblance to the word white, so pure it was. Its mane and tail were made up of platinum strands that lifted and fluttered in a gentle breeze. Its ivory hooves were cloven, and in the center of its noble forehead a spiraled horn caught the sunlight and reflected it like a prism. Perfect guys don't exist. So Mariah returns to Marlborough House with Arian, only to find out that there's been a rumor that's happened that they think that Mariah sent a letter to one of the women's husbands, one of the husbands that's not in on it, and that she had to go home in disgrace, so everyone hates Mariah. And then Lady Westlake, you know, the bitch I told you all about earlier, she decides to bring Mariah down even further because Lady Westlake is now in cahoots with Caber, the Fey Lord. Westlake and another lord, get it on near the kitchens where servants can be walking near, and she starts calling him Ash, he starts calling her Mariah, so that anyone walking by thinks that they're hearing Ash and Mariah, you know, just going at it like that. And that was ridiculous. Oh, man. And then just as she's about to leave in disgrace, Donington comes back. Her husband. Donington apparently has decided, fuck Caber and his deal. He just wants Mariah to be his wife now, and screw all of this. But he's still trying to, like, be like, no. Ash said that he was a distant cousin and tried to come take my land and tried to kill me. That's why I had him imprisoned. Mariah's like, okay, why didn't you call the authorities? And he's like, he tried to kill me. And she's like, right. So you imprisoned him on your land and didn't tell anyone he was there before you left? Mariah believes Arian now and everything, and is trying to figure out how she's gonna fix all this. And she goes with Arian to the gate. And before they can cross over, they decide to consummate. So they're making out, getting real friendly and frisky. One of her, in her questing, it was more than merely hard. Its circumference was so large that she wasn't sure at first that her hand would fit around it. Ow! Soon it will be inside me. Catching the silky cap between her teeth. No. No. No teeth. What's wrong? No teeth. Woman's juices. It was a sharp, quick plunge, and she felt the snap of something breaking, the mildest discomfort before the waves of pleasure began. Alright, let's be honest. Fellow vagina havers. That's just not gonna happen. This is a no. Not for your first time. This isn't gonna... This... Awful. Bad. Ow. This... something tore. Something tore, alright. And it probably wasn't her... It probably wasn't the concept of her virginity. It was something else a little bit more substantial than that. They go through the gate. They're greeted by Caber. Caber turns Ash back into Arian, his unicorn self. He's like, hey, you shall be mine wife, and you would be mine. And she's like, okay, sure, I'll be yours, if you let him go. So he does. And she's like, fuck you, and then leaps back into the human world. Oh, I almost forgot. Nola. Nola shows up again, but she's not Nola, the lady's maid. Her name is Nula. And and she says that she's a witch, but they keep saying she doesn't seem quite fey, and she doesn't seem quite like a goddess, but there's something very otherworldly about her, and she's very she's fucking powerful, and so I'm pretty sure she might be supposed to be Finola, who's a daughter of Lear, the Irish god of the sea. Yeah, Donington's after him. Also, Lady Westlake is roaming the forest with a pistol. And she shoots St. John, bitch. But when Ash finds him, he uses his horn and heals him, so it's all good. Yeah, that's what happens. Donington tries to shoot Ash afterwards, and she's dying. Mariah jumps in front of her, she's dying. And Donington says, what the fuck do I do? And Arian's like, if you break my horn off and pour my blood into her, it'll bring her back from the brink of death. And she gets the unicorns to cross over into the real world. And by their powers combined, they heal Ash. So he stays in the human world, yay! They have a baby, yay! And Vivian, you know, the evil mother-in-law, turns it around, and, she's much more welcoming and nice to Mariah and Ash. Even though, like, she eventually found out what was going on, too, that there was some otherworldly shit happening. So, and they have a kid, and the kid clearly has unicorn powers, because he's able to cure Vivian's arthritis completely, which is pretty nifty of an infant to do. So all in all, the more mystical aspects were pretty interesting. I think just for me, some of Mariah's like flowery language and concentration on Arian's member was just so much. It's just, oh man, it was just so much. But yeah, so that's that. I kind of honestly want to read the sequel now, which is about St. John, because out of all the characters in that book, I actually like reading about St. John. But you can't always get what you want, so we'll see. I might read that, but I probably won't review it because I have a soft spot for St. John. I don't want to make fun of him. The love scenes were steamy. The writing was pretty good, if a bit flowery, but what can you expect from a romance novel? So yeah, that is me signing off. I will see you next time when we read another romance novel.